Hi, everyone. We are once again at the end of a busy work week, the middle of June. Hard to believe the year is nearly half over. This is Healthy by Association. We'll be launching into a conversation shortly about 5 subtle employee burnout signs you could be overlooking. I think this is so vitally important given the return to work and certainly all that we're navigating as employees and supervisors within the workplace. We're talking about your little oasis, your summer escape. For Angela, that is the pool. So we'll be talking a little bit more about that. And our special guest today is Scott Oser, who will be helping us think about, reflect on our workout trackers, the things we all love and love to hate that we wear on our wrist. And in some cases, we are beholden to them. So are they actually helping us out, or are they just generating more stress? All of that and more on today's episode. Let's get started.
Welcome to your Healthy by Association Weekly Wellness Check with Aaron Wolowick, Angela Pelk, and Jim Thompson.
Welcome, everyone, to Healthy by Association. It is Friday, June 18th. We've made it yet another week. We have a full panel today, and our special guest today is Scott Oser. Scott, it is a pleasure to see you. It's been a while, but maybe for some of our new viewers, you would introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about your connection to health and wellness.
Sure. I am Scott Oser. During my daytime job, I'm actually a consultant to the association world, the association industry. We help associations with their membership, marketing, and sales needs. And health, fitness, it's an all day, every day kind of endeavor for me. I have really focused on becoming more healthy over time, staying healthy. And so this is an exciting day to be part of this again. It's nice to be welcomed back and look forward to having a conversation.
Awesome. Well, it's a pleasure to have you here. And I think the thing that always stands out to me about you, Scott, in particular, is when we've been offsite at events, I know how deliberately and intentionally you schedule workout time when you're traveling and when you're offsite at conferences. And I would just love for you maybe to say a couple of words about that, maybe why it's you and how you've been disciplined enough to make that a routine habit, particularly when you're traveling and at events.
Sure. It truly is routine. It's something that I put onto my calendar, that I put into my schedule, because as I try to pay attention to my own body, if I don't stick to my routine, sometimes I actually think it's kind of a bad thing, because I am very routine and very structured. So if I get out of my routine for even a few days at a time, I just don't feel good. I just don't feel like myself. And it's worth it to me to take time away from an event or take time away from something else to make sure that I do feel good, because otherwise, if I let it back up a little bit and I go a few days without exercising or without eating healthy, it just makes those upcoming days just not feel great, and I don't feel great, so then I'm not the person that I want to be.
Absolutely. Well, appreciate that. Angela, it's our weekly wellness check. Just to remind our viewers, every week we sort of start and kick off our show by checking in with ourselves and identify maybe on a scale from 1 to 10 where our health and wellness rating is, and really not from a place of blame, shame, attack, or judgment, but really just to notice, be aware, and maybe break the cycle or identify a new habit that we want to try out or try on over the weekend. And so let's start with you for today. How has your week been? Where are you at?
Pretty good week. I think everything's just kind of been, kind of cool. I haven't grocery shopped in a while. It's been, it was a week ago Monday. So we're sort of living on fumes in the freezer right now. And that's not been great. So I do need to get a shop in, but my husband and son are traveling this weekend, and we're kind of like out for a wedding tomorrow. So I don't want to shop until people are going to be home again. And so we're just sort of muddling through, which isn't great. And then we're left with all sorts of odds and ends. And we carried in pizza to the pool the other night, and that wasn't great. I ate a salad and like pizza crust, and I'm like, meh. So, but exercise has been good. I've been out walking every day, except for today. It's raining in Michigan. We had some big dark skies and thunderstorms and lightning this morning, so I didn't make it out today. So, Scott will talk about where my steps are today and how that's connected with my brain. So I don't know, maybe we're like a 7.5 today.
Well, and you mentioned sort of that the need to go grocery shopping and just kind of having food on hand. I was trying to scroll quickly to an image I had posted last weekend. And it was just kind of a reminder to eat seasonally. And for the month of June, there were a number of sort of fruits and veggies that were, most prominent in the grocery store that are super fresh. Things like cherries and cucumber and carrots and strawberries, peas, cabbage, onion. And the sort of idea of eating and shopping seasonally isn't something that I normally do or normally think about, but thought that was a great reminder that as in particular the summer months eke on and as we navigate fall as well, that there are a lot of seasonal vegetables and fruits that are going to be ripe for the picking and extra special and extra great and tasty. So maybe when you go to the store, you'll be on the lookout for some of those things. Jim, though, want to turn to you. Welcome you, of course, to the show as always, and kind of turn to you for your weekly check-in.
Sure. So I would say I'm kind of pushing the 6 this week. Got my meal prep got off to a really bad start this past week, and I just never have been able to catch up. And both for lunches and just our normal evening dinners, it's just been like, I don't know if it's just the post-graduation hype. We had a big graduation party for my son on Saturday night, and it seemed like I just sort of threw the weekend off and threw everything off planning-wise. So, but anyway, but that's past us now, so hopefully moving into next week will be a little better. So.
Nice. Well, I would just say that I think I'm somewhere in between a 7 and 8. Since we feel like we can do fractional points, I'm probably at a 7.5. Not for any bad reason. We've been doing our AM and PM workouts. I found, this might sound so ridiculous, but I found a new lid to my water bottle, and for whatever reason, I'm always so much better and so much more productive with my water intake when I have a good straw. And so I sort of made that conversion to my Yeti, and I feel like I'm taking in like way more water than normal. For me, though, I think we've been in the pool and doing that thing each evening this week, and so I think for me, it's just that I'm hitting this like weird plateau in terms of the way I feel, the way things fit, the way the scale reads. And I don't know about anyone else, but sometimes when you hit that plateau or you're in a groove where you don't feel like you're seeing the payoff, it has sort of a negative impact. And so I think that's just operating a little bit in the background, but otherwise things are all good on the Western Front. Scott, I'll turn to you and have you finish our panel roundup for today in terms of our weekly wellness check. And on that scale from 1 to 10, when you think about your health and wellness this week, where are you at and why?
I think I'm about 6.5 or 7. It's been a weird kind of week where I've been doing the workouts that I need to do. We were talking a little bit before we went live. I went out for a nice long run yesterday. It didn't feel great. I don't know if it was mental or if it was physical. It just didn't feel great. And I've noticed that for whatever reason this week, that sweets craving is creeping in. And so I haven't indulged with it, but it's been mentally, it's like, do I want eggs for breakfast this morning or do I want pancakes? No, I want pancakes. I don't want eggs this morning. I don't want savory. I want sweet. And so, that weighs on me a little bit mentally, because even though we eat in this household, we eat healthy and healthy waffles, and they're not just white flour, it still doesn't feel as healthy. And so, I've been thinking about that. It's like, why am I getting these cravings right now? And should I indulge and just get them out of the way? Or is this sort of the step in the wrong direction that may be hard to stop?
Yeah, it's hard to choose. Like, it's hard to choose. Sometimes that, like, for me, indulging a little bit is important just to get the sweet tooth out of the way. But in other instances, it's a longer term thing that maybe that sweet tooth can't be fulfilled. So I feel you. It's a hard place to be in. All right, so I want to turn to our lead story for today. This was an article from Calm called Five Subtle Employee Burnout Signs You Could Be Overlooking. And I know that all four of us sort of approach our work in a different way. In some instances, like Angela, runs the restaurant with her husband. So they have, employees and workers as servers and cooks. Jim, in terms of the AMC and sort of what your team looks like. Scott and I on the consultant side. All of our sort of work looks differently, and the way we're either interacting with employees or clients is different. But I think this idea of burnout and recognizing the signs of burnout is just so important. I sort of teased earlier with both the return to in-person work and meetings and events, but also navigating, work from home schedule still in some instances, a hybrid schedule of work, and all of the things around work, I think are so important right now. And we're all navigating them in very different ways. And so identification of burnout and helping others recognize the signs are so important, because really recognizing the signs are the first step to helping, whether they're employees or team members, whether they're clients or whether they're family members or friends, I think is important. So I'm just going to point out these five burnout signs and just want to go around the panel and sort of identify either in yourself or in others that you're working with, either how you might notice them or how you might help folks. And what in particular resonates with you. So number one on the list really is that loss of confidence, sort of, suddenly seeming to lose confidence in their abilities or skills, could be a sign of burnout. A change in socializing, maybe whereas somebody has been, really social in the past, maybe they are retreating more, or feeling lethargic or disconnected. And the third here is just a change in general behavior. If an employee or colleague suddenly has a drastic dip in their energy, maybe that is a sign of burnout. Number four is just a lack of care at work. Like they just don't seem to care, whereas maybe in the past they were, a team player, they were collaborative, and they really did have a can-do attitude at work. And so that change here is really what you're looking for. And lastly, just they become physically ill, often and frequently and over a period of time. We've said time and time again how sort of the mental health, mental well-being, and stress and anxiety can have a physical impact on your health. Anyway, those are some that are introduced in this article. I just want to turn maybe, Jim, if I could, to you first, and either just for your thoughts and reflections here, either places maybe where you sort of experience burnout, or maybe where you've seen burnout in your team. What are some signs and signals that have jumped out at you?
Yeah, I would say, especially with being in the AMC environment, with managing multiple clients, it seems like the fall, and we're already experiencing now. We're already experiencing the stress from staff, as we're building into fall meetings and getting back to the meetings in person, and hybrid meetings and all these different things. And so, I can really see that in some of the staff in terms of especially, the change in socializing, maybe they're just not as, friendly and hanging out of the water cooler like they would be. It seems like everybody gets buried in their offices and they don't come out and talk. So it's just like you can just sense it's like you can just cut the tension in the office with a knife, just because everybody seems to be on edge a little bit. You can tell people are just burned out. They're busy. They're just tired around all those meeting times. So it's real. And I think it's something that we as employers really need to be mindful. And I appreciate you posting this article, because I think that's one of those things that I think we can really be looking out for, those kind of things from our staff, and realizing, what are some things that we can do to help them, even if you may not be able to alleviate the actual stress of the work, but at least offer encouragement.
Yeah, I think for me, that socializing thing is jumps to the top of the list. So personally, when I'm burned out, I know that I have a hard time starting meetings or, being collaborative. in a really friendly way. It's not like I'm interested in like, how are you doing personally and what's going on with your family and is everything okay? Like sort of like jump straight into the work and sort of skip all of the pleasantries. Also, I thought just the loss of confidence. Like I see some of my colleagues sort of lose their confidence when they get really stretched and burned. It's almost like they can't do anything right. And I think that, Jim, to your point, noticing some of these things is the first step. And then as an employer, as a friend, as a colleague, figuring out how to support, how to help, how to create structure to overcome that burnout or to reverse that burnout is important. We're sort of focusing less on that today because I think noticing and being aware is so important. I want to turn to you, Angela. I know that certainly throughout the pandemic and running the restaurant and seeing your team members, I'm sure approach burnout, whether it's because of what's happening in the workplace or what's happening at home and bringing that into the workplace. There's just a lot going on. I'm just kind of curious about your thoughts and insights here.
Yeah, this list is great. I think it's important for anyone in a management position. I think in any industry, I think it's important to have. If you can even, and we talk about this all the time, if we can just pause and like have a real conversation with our colleagues or our employees about like, hey, what's going on with you? Like, is everything okay? I'm noticing this. Boy, that the lack of confidence thing is huge. But also what was the other one? Lack of care at work. There's people that we've had who have been, just awesome. And then all of a sudden they're just like, whatever, their work is sloppy or, they're just not themselves. And it's like, we got to pause. We can't afford to lose anybody that we have at this point. We're trying to hire people. And that is just an absolute nightmare right now. I mean, to be honest, we're just having trouble getting people to show up for interviews or, and maybe that's part of like this re-entry anxiety that people are having, but just sort of being aware and having even just this short list in your back pocket to just when you're observing your staff or your colleagues, it's kind of handy. There's so much here that really can fit just about every situation. So I really love this list. I wish I would have seen this like years and years ago. It could have saved a lot of heartache, I think, in a lot of different ways.
Nice. Scott, I just want to turn to you to wrap up this conversation before we move on. Any sort of thoughts from your perspective on this topic of overcoming burnout or at least being aware of it?
Yeah, I think it's tough, and it's also a bit of a challenge for me to answer because I work for myself, by myself all day. So in some ways, I am, there's obviously meetings and Zoom calls and things like that where I see people and participate in virtual events, but the large majority of my day is spent solo. So it's dealing with my own feelings and dealing with my own perception of burnout and is it fleeting or does this become an ongoing thing? And I think that's another piece of this is noticing if it's for me and people that are around me, is it something that is short term? Like you see it once and you kind of note it, right? I noticed that I'm not as motivated today, but it could be that I'm tired. It could be that I had one too many cocktails last night. It could be a lot of things of why I'm not motivated today. Or is it starting to become a trend? And I think identifying that trend is more important or just as important because we all have days or we all have moments during the day where we kind of go, I really don't want to do that. I really, I'm just not motivated to do it. I'm feeling that burnout. I need to take a break. And then making sure that we do take a break and then addressing the problems or the challenges as they show up.
Well, I think as consultants, sometimes we know that some of our work in collaboration with association staff means that there are hurdles, barriers, roadblocks to sort of implementing some of the tools and tactics that we're working with that particular organization and group on. And I think in those instances, sometimes the barrier to implementation is this burnout. And so recognizing that I think it can be helpful to some of us as we're working with one another, with organizations, with clients, because in some cases it has nothing to do with us or the project. In some cases it has everything to do with their sort of fuller workload and what's on their plate. But I was thinking, Angela, what a good sort of pivot point now. How are we going to overcome burnout? And I think some of it is finding our place, particularly summer months, and yours just so happens to be the pool. Tell us about that.
We found our summer happy place. There's a pool in the neighborhood. It's it's a private member kind of thing, and we've been wanting to join, and we've always had friends who are members, and we've had guest passes there and whatever. And I just tell you, it has been wonderful to have a local sort of change of scenery, with plenty of kids around that my son knows and plenty of parents around that I know. And it's just been so nice. And I was just thinking about it yesterday. I'm like, we have to talk about this on the wellness check-in, that literally I set my bag down with my phone and I walked away from it for hours, like 4 or 5 hours. Bradley went and played basketball, volleyball, was in the pool, out of the pool, having a Arnold Palmer from the snack stand. I laid in the sun. I read my Kindle. I put on sunscreen. I walked around. I chatted with people. Like, it was just so nice to have that, change of scenery and just to be away from the house that I feel like we were sort of in all last summer. I really feel like we're having like a nice start to summer vacation. I don't feel like summer's flying by. I feel like, that we're sort of present, which is hard to be when you have your phone in your hand all the time. So I'm really enjoying just, sort of like setting that phone down and just like literally chilling out. And so it's just been great. I look forward to going and just being there. And it's just our magical, fun summertime place.
Well, I just think that people need to figure out what that fun summertime place is, what their summer happy place is for them, whether it's a pool or some other place. I have seen so many people posting about local sort of community pools that they've been going to. So many have begun to reopen, not only as a result of the pandemic, but just in hiring and finding lifeguards to even staff them. So it's exciting to see those come back on board. Well, Scott, I wanted to turn to you because you brought up such a great point in our pre-show meeting about the things that so many of us have, these wearables, these trackers that tell us how much we're sleeping, when we need to stand, if we've moved enough today, how many calories we've taken in. And I think to your point, really figuring out whether they're helping us or hurting us is an important sort of check-in that we need to have with ourselves. So maybe you'll explain a little bit more and kind of tell us where you land in that continuum.
Yeah, I've been wearing this thing. For those of you who don't recognize it, it's actually called a Whoop. It's WHOOP, and my girlfriend discovered this about a year and a half ago. And since Whoop came out, Apple has mimicked it a little bit. Amazon has come up with some things with tracking HRV and tracking your sleep and tracking everything else. And I can't say for sure that Whoop was the first, but it was the first time that I had seen something like that. And I had never worn a fitness tracker. I run, I bike, I go to the gym. So to me, as long as I was doing those things, I didn't need something on my wrist to tell me that I needed to get up, that I needed to move, that I wasn't getting enough sleep. I sort of felt like I had enough internal guidance to be able to do that on my own. But since wearing this, I've noticed that I have really become, in many ways, kind of a slave to my Whoop. And I look at it right before I go to bed so I can let it know that I'm going to sleep. I look for it the very first thing in the morning to let it know that I'm awake, and to also see what my recovery is for the day, to know whether I should be working out harder or lighter, or some days just taking a rest, those kind of things. And it's with all of the technology that we all use and all of our fitness trackers, it's technology. It's not, it's not some just natural thing that we all do. It's another device that we can use. And it's another reason to think and use technology and to use our phones, because the phone is the interface. And so it's a couple of things. It's one, it's that technology that we're using more and more and more. And two, am I no longer listening to my body, but I'm allowing another device to tell me what I should be doing? And does that help me, or is that more stressful? Because like I was saying earlier to you guys, that I went for a long run yesterday. I woke up this morning expecting my recovery to be down, because that's normally what happens. Your have a lot of exertion, the next day it should be down. Well, my recovery score today is actually pretty good, but I wasn't planning on doing a big workout today. So now mentally, and maybe this is just me, maybe I'm just the guy who goes, all right, I'm going to let this thing drive what I do. But now I'm looking at it going, oh man, now I'm sort of stressed is not the right word, but it's like, do I go to the gym and push myself more than I was planning on? Or do I just sort of, you know what, Scott, it's time to just take a little bit of a break. You went for a long run yesterday. That's totally cool. Let yourself off the hook and do it. And I'm with myself because I'm fighting with this, and that's, I don't know if that's a good thing. I guess there are good and bad of any technology, but that's what I'm thinking about is, all right, when do I take it off? I never take it off. It's on me 24 hours a day, and I'm looking at to see how I'm feeling, how I'm doing. And maybe I'm the OCD anal one here. I don't know, but I feel it,
Jim, we only have like 2 minutes left. So just quickly, I wanted to come to you because I know you're also beholden to, I think, your Garmin. So tell us about that and kind of where you fit in this spectrum.
Well, I mean, I'm kind of like with Scott there. I mean, you almost kind of just get addicted to all these statistics. I mean, there's not a morning that doesn't go by that I don't wake up and first thing I do is I'll look for my phone and look what my sleep pattern was like and see how many steps I got yesterday and just look at the, all those different statistics. And then of course, we were talking about this during the pre-show too. There's that whole thing about, the magical number of you're supposed to move 250 steps per hour, whatever the case is. And, you go for, a 5 or 6 mile run and at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, you're exhausted and yet your watch is still telling you need to move. And it's like, but you're so, you're so accustomed to listening to it and watching it. But I like the statistics. I mean, I like looking at your heart rate and looking at what your resting heart rate is and seeing how that evolves over time. Looking at an intense workout and seeing how it's how it manifests itself in your heart rate, things like that. So, there's some good information in there, but it's definitely something that it's a part of your life now.
It's good to be aware, right? It's good to be aware of both the pros and the cons of our wearables. Well, Scott, certainly want to thank you for joining us this week. 30 minutes has flown by, as always. Jim and Angela, it was a pleasure to see you. We'll look forward to tagging up next week with our special guest, Rachel Whitten. Of course, you can find Scott Oser in the Healthy by Association Facebook community, Scott Oser. In the meantime, this has been Healthy by Association. Until next week, please remember to power your life with health, wellness, and intention. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. We'll see you next week.